1, 2, 3, 4.
A VP of operations told me something last month that I have not stopped thinking about. Before she gives feedback to the one person on her team who makes her stomach drop, she opens ChatGPT first. She types out what happened. She asked it to write the words. Then she sits in her car in the parking garage and reads the script out loud before she ever says a syllable to the actual person. She's not lazy and she's not avoiding her job. She's doing something her body decided to do long before artificial intelligence ever existed. Today, we are going to talk about why that matters more than the software does. Thank you for joining me today. This is Sahar Andrade. I'm a Neuroleadership Coach and a Forbes Coach Council member. This is AI Cafe Conversations, and I am here to share with you the intersection of AI, leadership, and neuroscience. So here is the pattern I keep watching show up in my own rooms over and over with executives who are good at their jobs and good people underneath the title. There is one direct report, almost always one. And the direct report has said in some words or none at all that they do not feel safe on this team. The leader hears that and doesn't know what to do with it. So they go to AI first. They describe the situation, sometimes in painstaking detail, and they ask for the script. Does that sound familiar? Here is what I want you to notice before we go any further. AI can write a beautiful paragraph about vulnerability and trust. It can draft feedback that sounds like it came straight out of a leadership book. Every phrase measured, every edge sanded down. What it cannot do is walk into that room and steady the body that has to say the words out loud, because that part was never a language problem to begin with. 25% of workers say they trust AI more than they trust their own manager. Sit with that number for a second, because it's not really a statement about artificial intelligence and how good it has gotten. It's a statement about what has been missing from the room long before the chatbot ever showed up. Let's slow down a bit and look at what's actually happening in a leader's body before a meeting like this even starts. Because this is where the real story lives. This is not a confidence problem, it's a threat detection problem. And the mechanism is almost embarrassingly simple once you see it. The amygdala, the part of the brain built to scan constantly for danger, does not know the difference between a predator and a hard conversation with a direct report. Both get flagged the same way. Both trigger the same cascade underneath the surface. Heart rate climbing, breath going shallow, and the prefrontal cortex, PFC, the part that handles careful language and nuance, and reading the room, going quieter at the exact moment a leader needs it working at, you guessed it, at full capacity. So the leader reaches for a buffer, not because they're weak and not because they do not care, because the body is doing exactly what it's built to do, which is look for something to stand between itself and the perceived danger. For a long time, that buffer was avoidance itself. The meeting that never got scheduled, the feedback that got softened into almost nothing or nothing. Now the buffer has a name and an interface and it types back. Here is the part I need you to really sit with, because it's the part almost everyone in this conversation gets wrong. including some very well-meaning HR departments. The direct report who says they do not feel safe is not hiding something, and they're not manipulating the situation to get out of accountability. Their body is doing its job too, and its job is reading the room accurately. I don't mean to shoot myself in the foot here, but I'm not saying that that's going to be 100% of the cases, but this is the majority of the cases. Leaders and the reports are reading each other constantly, faster than either one can consciously track, through tone, through posture, through the dozens of small signals. A nervous system throws off before a single word gets spoken. Scientists call this mirror neuron activity, the wiring that lets one person's internal state register in another person's body almost instantly. You have felt this yourself. I know I did, multiple times. You know that within seconds of walking into a room, whether the person across from you is actually present or just going through the motions. And you knew it before either of you said a word. When the person delivering feedback is running in a state of strain, walking in already braced, already scripted, already halfway rehearsing the next sentence instead of actually being present with the person in front of them, the report on the other side of the desk picks that up immediately. Not because they're paranoid and not because they're looking for a reason to feel prompt, because the signal is real and their nervous system is reading it correctly. A leader in imbalance reads as unsafe. And the body sitting across the desk registers that with total accuracy every single time. Two people, both out of a grounded state, reading each other with precision, and neither one able to say so out loud. Because saying it out loud is exactly the kind of hard conversation this whole cycle is built to avoid. That is the crisis. Not that leaders are using AI. Leaders using AI to solve a language problem when what they actually have is a nervous system problem. And no script, however well written, changes what the body in the room is broadcasting underneath the words. Here is what happens when a leader keeps reaching for the script instead of addressing what is actually underneath it. The words get better, true. The delivery doesn't. And a direct report who is paying close attention, which most people who already feel unsafe are paying very close attention, notices the mismatch almost immediately. The sentence says, I care about your growth. The body in the room says, get this over with as fast as possible. Which one do you think that person actually believes by the time the meeting ends? Tell me in the comments, what do you think? This is where I want to bring in Amy Edmondson, the Harvard researcher who gave the field the team psychological safety in the first place. Because I hear leaders misquote her more than almost anyone else in this place and in this space. Psychological safety was never about making people feel comfortable. It was never about lowering the bar or protecting people from hard truth. Edmondson has spent years correcting exactly that misunderstanding. Because a generally safe team is not a team where nobody gets challenged. It's a team where people are safe enough to take the risk of being honest, safe enough to say the hard thing and hear the hard thing back without the relationship collapsing. Candor is the entire point of the framework, not the thing safety is supposed to shield people from. Which means an AI perfect script cannot manufacture the thing that was actually missing in that room. You can handle either the most beautifully worded feedback conversation ever written. And if the room itself is not grounded, if the leader is bracing instead of present, the words too close to nothing. Worse than nothing, actually. Honestly, because now the gap between what was said and what was felt becomes one more piece of evidence the direct report's nervous system quietly files under cannot trust this person, even when they say the right thing. And the rest of the team is watching, whether they mean it or not. Every person who was never in that room still feels the aftermath of it. Because this is where contagion stops being a personal cost and starts being an organizational one. One leader running on strain, defaulting to scripted, careful, performed language in every difficult moment, teaches an entire team that hard truths get handled through performance instead of presence. People quietly stop bringing hard things forward, not because anyone told them to, because they read the room correctly over and over. And the room kept saying it's not actually safe to be honest here, no matter how good the vocabulary sounds. Then the turnover conversation happens later, and everyone is confused about why the strongest people left first. In my experience, they are usually the most attuned people on the team. They are the first to notice when safety is being performed rather than felt, and the first to leave once they have noticed it enough times to stop believing it will change. I want to be clear about something before we move on, because the instant here is going to be to hear all of this and decide the tool itself is the villain. It's not. It's not. It's deflection. AI is generally useful for organizing your thoughts before a hard conversation, for catching a blind spot in how you were about to phrase something, for helping you find language when you are too activated in the moment to find your own. The problem was never that a leader opened ChatGPT before a hard conversation, or Claude, or Gemini. The problem is stopping there and treating the script as the whole job instead of the very first and step. This is what I call the copy and paste syndrome. The conversation still has to be delivered by a body that is regulated enough for the written words to land the way they were intended. So, what's the solution? You might ask, right? So, actually, let's talk about what will change this. And it's not a better prompt, it's a different order of operations. And it is simpler than most leaders expect. Though simple is not the same thing as easy. Here is the shift I teach in my own groups. Before you touch the keyboard, before you ask AI for a single word of that conversation, you deal with your own body first. You get yourself grounded before you get the language right. And that order matters more than almost anything else in this episode. A grounded leader with clumsy, imperfect words will land better than a scripted leader with perfect everything about what they say. Because the nervous system sitting across the desk is reading the leader's state before it ever fully processes a single sentence being said. Authenticity comes through, or none. This is the whole premise underneath the BRAIN, BRAIN framework I built. 5 evidence-based principles that create the conditions for lasting leadership change. I'm not going to walk you through the full methodology in this episode. That work happens inside the room with an actual client. But here is the piece I want you to leave with today. Regulations, which is the R in brain, comes before strategy every single time. And that includes the strategy of what you are about to say to your hardest direct report. Regulated leadership is not just the nicer way to run a team either. DDI's research, DDI research, has connected it to 2.6 times multiplier in financial performance, which tells you this was never a soft skill dressed up in science language. It's a business result with a mechanism behind it. Practically, here is what looks like before your next hard conversation. You do not open ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever you use first. You do something physical first. Something that tells your body the threat in front of you is a conversation and not a predator. A few slow exhales, each one longer than the inhale before it. Feet flat on the floor, always noticing the floor is there. 30 seconds of doing nothing at all. No script, no rehearsal. Just letting your heart rate come down out of threat mode and back into something closer to grounded. Only after that do you go get help with language. If you still want it, because now you are drafting from a grounded state instead of a braced one. And whatever comes back will actually sound like you instead of sounding like a leadership book someone else wrote. And when you finally sit down with the direct report, you let go of the script the moment the conversation stops going the way you rehearsed it. Because it will stop going that way, almost every time. Real conversations do not follow scripts. A leader white-knuckling their way through a memorized paragraph is broadcasting exactly that. Performance, not presence, when you need presence and not performance. No matter how good the sentence structure is. The person across from you feels the difference between a leader who prepared and a leader who is reciting, even when they could not name what tipped them off. One more piece, because I can already hear the objection forming from some of you. What about the direct report side of all this? You cannot regulate someone else's nervous system for them, and you should not even try. But a leader who walks in grounded changes what becomes possible in that room, because steadiness is one of the only things that reliably travels between two nervous systems in real time. You have felt this yourself in rooms that have nothing to do with work. One calm, present person in a chaotic room can shift the entire temperature of it without saying a single word. That is not a soft, vague idea. That is contagion working in the direction you actually want it to work in, for once, instead of the direction that keeps costing you your best people. Now I can already hear again some of you thinking it. I don't have time to sit with my feelings before every hard conversation. That mushy stuff, woo-woo stuff, I don't believe in it. I have a board meeting in 20 minutes, a direct report crisis today, and 100 Slack messages I have not touched. I hear that completely, I do. And here is the mechanism behind my answer, not just reassurance. The 30 seconds I'm describing is not a spa day, and it's not self-indulgence, and it's not woo-hoo out there. It's actually based in neuroscience. It is the fastest route back to a functioning PFC, prefrontal cortex, which happens to be the exact part of the brain you need online for that hard conversation to go anywhere close to well. Skip it, and you walk in with a threat response quietly running the show underneath every single word you say, which means worse judgment in the moment, worse listening, and a much higher chance the conversation goes sideways and, and has to happen again next week. The leaders who tell me they do not have time for this are almost without exception the same leaders redoing the same difficult conversation 2 or 3 separate times. Because the first 2 attempts were delivered by a nervous system in training, not by the leader that actually are underneath it. 30 seconds now is cheaper than 3 attempts later. That is not philosophy. I'm telling you, that is math. If any part of this landed for you, if you recognize yourself opening a chat window before your hardest conversations, I want to invite you somewhere this episode cannot take you. The pressure room. The pressure room is a free live session I run once a month, and the next one is Thursday, July 30th at 11 a.m. Pacific on Zoom. 45 minutes. That's it, 45 minutes. One model taught in full. One protocol you can always use that same day before your next hard conversation. Register for the pressure room. The link is in the show notes. Leadership doesn't fail. Nervous systems do. Before I leave, like every time, show me some love. I'm going to put the pressure room link down here. It's 45 minutes. It's a free attendance. I hope to see you there. Please like, comment, subscribe, or rate our podcast. Thank you for your support, making us one of the top 2% global podcasts that exist. I really appreciate it. Show me some love, like I always say. Till we meet again on Friday in the Forbes article like short edition. Till then, peace out.